Hello, my name is Aisling Conboy and I'm the Higher Education Specialist for the Department for International Trade in the UK. I'd like to talk to you today about the new UK Government International Education Strategy and to give you an overview of the strategy and to look at its key points in relation to higher education, transnational education. The new strategy was published in March 2019 and sets out our global priorities and ambitions for the coming years. In terms of the development of the strategy, the previous strategy was published in 2013, and this new iteration was led by the Department for International Trade and also the Department for Education in the UK, working closely with other government departments across Whitehall. The education sector in the UK and the devolved administrations were also consulted in its development. It's available for you to read online, and I hope you all get a chance to read the document, and we hope it helps you to understand the UK's priorities and also to highlight how we are keen to develop partnerships globally. The strategy has ambitions to grow the UK's international student numbers to 600,000 and to increase the value of education exports to £35 billion per year by 2030. In developing the strategy, it was very important that we developed clear actions and that there will be annual reviews in relation to the implementation of the strategy, so that it is not simply a document, but is used to guide our work. The headline actions are that, first of all, the UK will appoint an international education champion in 2019. Secondly, we want to ensure the Education is Great campaign promotes the breadth and diversity of the UK education offer more fully to international audiences, including prioritising more education bids for the Great Challenge Fund for 2019, a £5 million fund which supports export activity for the education sector across the globe. The third headline is to establish a whole-of-government approach to education exports. And the fourth headline from the strategy is to strengthen the UK's visa offer for international higher education students and to keep the visa application process for international students under review. Lastly, the strategy commits to providing a clear picture of exports activity and improve the accuracy and coverage of education exports. So you might ask, why a strategy now? Since the launch of the 2013 International Education Strategy, Global Growth and Prosperity, the government has worked to strengthen the promotion of the UK's global education. An education team was established within the Department for International Trade that focuses on 4 key geographic regions. The government set its ambition to grow exports as a share of GDP from 30% to 35% in the 2018 export strategy. And the International Education Strategy sets out how the education sector can help contribute towards this ambition. Leaving the European Union presents the UK with an opportunity to extend its international ambitions and role on the global stage, and by utilising our newly independent trade policy to boost our existing trading relationships by securing new trade agreements. Since 2013, a rapidly growing global education market has created strong competition from other countries around the world. As students face increasing choice, some of our competitors are outpacing global growth rates. Education exports were valued at almost £20 billion in 2016 for the UK, and working together with the sector, we hope to grow what is a very important export sector. Working across government is very important, and the new International Education Strategy ties in with several other current government strategies. The government's launched a series of interconnected strategies and policy objectives, which together set out the UK's position and aspirations on the global stage. These are mutually reinforcing, and this document is the latest contribution to that broader picture, including the export strategy, industrial strategy, and UK aid strategy, to name but a few. We also had to work closely with the education sector, and for the strategy to be a success, it is key that we engage with the sector closely. To this end, the Education Sector Advisory Group was established and aims to increase UK education exports by overcoming sector challenges and exploring opportunities. It acts as the focal point for organisations representing the education sector to help government implement a programme for the international promotion of the UK education sector. It will receive reports on the progress of implementing the government's international education strategy and help set the strategic direction of the team I work in, the Department for International Trade Education team, including setting our country and regional priorities. Our global ambition has a focus on key regions that represent many opportunities for UK providers, but various barriers and complexities mean that accessing these education markets can be difficult without the support of government. The regions share common features that underpin their high value and potential, including a drive from governments to prioritise investment in education and research. Secondly, demand for the best learning experiences from the expanding middle classes. And thirdly, economies that are diversifying towards skills, knowledge and services. Our current geographic focus is on Latin America, the Middle East, North Africa, ASEAN and China and Hong Kong. Over time, we will review our focus and the countries may change over time too. The strategy and our work aims to support the entire UK education sector to develop internationally, including providers of early years education, independent schools, English language training providers, technical and vocational education and training skills and colleges, higher education, transnational education, and education technology suppliers. Now I will look at the focus on transnational education specifically. TNE offers UK universities and their partners a range of benefits and positive outcomes. The value goes beyond just the financial value, and we recognise this. TNE develops capacity and access to higher education and is also a very important driver for higher education institutions. We do recognise, though, that there are considerable challenges to working overseas, both in established and new markets, and we will focus on supporting providers which are able and willing to do so. The strategy identifies 3 actions in relation to transnational education. Action 19 states that the Department for Education and the Department for International Trade will work with the higher education sector in the UK and the British Council to identify more accurately the overall value of TNE to the UK economy. We hope to improve our statistics so they accurately reflect the financial value of TNE. Action 20 states that the Department for International Trade will encourage the sector to grow transnational education by engaging in dialogue with countries with recognised export potential. And the third action point, Action 21, states that the Department for International Trade will work with UUKi and the British Council to inform the UK sector of global opportunities for TNE through exhibits, webinars and engagement sessions. My role in the Department for International Trade is specifically focused on higher education, transnational education, and we are looking forward to supporting the sector develop globally and continue to provide high-quality higher education across the globe. Many thanks for your time today, and please get in touch if you'd like to know more about the strategy or DIT's role in helping develop global education partnerships.
Hello, my name is Eduardo Ramos and I am Head of Transnational Education at Universities UK International. Thanks to IEAA for giving me the opportunity of speaking to colleagues and friends at the Transnational Education Forum, and to JISC and the UK Department for International Trade for sharing this platform during this session on perspectives from the UK. Universities UK is a membership organisation representing 136 universities across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Our funders also include bodies such as GILD-HE, UK Research and Innovation, and Research England. So our remit is to represent the international interests of the whole of the UK higher education sector. The TNE Programme of Work is one of 6 programmes owned by Universities UK International. Its main aim is to position the UK as a leading transnational education provider and global partner of choice. We defend the sector's interests domestically and overseas on different issues, for instance, by liaising with the UK government and key partners to implement the actions of the recently launched International Education Strategy. We also use our convening power to share good practice and build capacity to undertake TNE, mainly through workshops and an annual TNE conference. This year, it will be held on the 6th of November. Transnational education, or international program and provider mobility, refers to education delivered in a country other than the country in which the awarding institution is located. In the case of the UK, this includes a wide range of models, from overseas campuses to distance learning, joint and dual degrees, and franchised and validated provision. UK universities are world leaders in TNE. Between 2013-14 and 2017-18, the number of students in UK transnational education programs grew by 20%. If we consider not only student numbers, but also the range of institutions that engage in TNE, the models of transnational education, and the territories in which programs are delivered, the UK has one of the largest and most diversified transnational higher education sectors in the world. Transnational education is also strategically important for the UK. According to UK Department for Education statistics, higher education TNE contributed £610 million to the UK economy in 2016, an increase of 72% from 2010. The recently published cross-government international education strategy includes 3 actions specifically tailored to support the expansion and diversification of UK TNE overseas. The latest data available also shows that the pattern of provision is changing. In 2017-18, the rate of growth slowed down compared to previous years. The overall picture is more nuanced, with maturing partnerships in established destinations and significant growth in emerging markets. Evidence suggests a trend towards consolidation of UK universities' overseas provision, with a number of institutions withdrawing from tutoring modes of TNE, such as franchising and validation. By contrast, there seems to be strong growth in collaborative arrangements that require long-term strategic approaches to partnership building, such as the design of dual or joint degrees or the development of joint study centers within local higher education institutions. If we look at the main host destinations, there has been little variation in the last 3 years. The top 10 destinations still account for over 50% of total student numbers. Among other things, this may signal that it takes time, effort, and investment to build transnational education partnerships, but that once they are in place, they tend to be resilient. Another crucial point is that, contrary to student recruitment, there is a relatively limited level of exposure to 1 or 2 countries at the sector level. One interesting regional trend is the strong growth experienced since 2015-16 in the European Union, outpacing other world regions. TNE students in the EU reached 81,000 in 2017-18, an increase of 14% over the previous year. 118 providers are now delivering TNE in the EU. This trend may bear witness to the firm commitment of UK universities with their partners in Europe. Lancaster and Coventry universities will be opening campuses in Germany and Poland, respectively. York, Glasgow, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, and Warwick have announced strategic partnerships in the EU. Overall, the UK has a diversified and well-established transnational education sector that has shown remarkable resilience under domestic and international challenges. The question is, how can the UK sustain further growth while maintaining quality and standards and diversify provision to new partner countries? The UK higher education sector has 2 clear competitive advantages for delivering programs overseas. The first is the reputation for high quality of its provision around the world. UK universities' excellence emanates from the international openness of the UK higher education system and is underpinned by robust sector-led quality assurance and enhancement mechanisms. The second lies in the partnerships that have been developed over time and that provide a footprint to scale up new forms of collaboration. These partnerships are not only with higher education institutions, but also with local schools, local employers, and crucially, with governments, regulators, and local authorities worldwide. In this context, we can try to gaze into the future and predict some upcoming trends in transnational education around the world. For presentational purposes, we could introduce 3 models for sustained growth of UK TNE provision overseas. Number 1, a quality enhancement model. Malaysia turned quickly into the top TNE partner country when government policy was modified in the late 1990s to allow local private institutions to award degrees offered through collaborative or twinning arrangements with foreign universities. Universities such as Nottingham collaborated with local authorities to help enhance the quality of provision in country. We are seeing signs of other territories where government-to-government dialogue and regional seed corn initiatives have been gaining momentum, such as Vietnam, Thailand, and the Philippines. Number 2, a capacity building model. In Nigeria, the development of digital capabilities and connectivity and the recognition of qualifications gained through distance learning have contributed to initiatives that aim at closing the gap between supply and demand for higher education. This happens in a context where currency fluctuations impact the rate of international mobility of local students. Such a model could be successfully applied to other countries, such as Indonesia, responding to local governments' interest in widening access to high-quality education for rapidly increasing youth populations. Number 3, a regional hub model. In the United Arab Emirates or Singapore, territories with liberal trade regulations and highly developed service sectors, UK TNE has contributed to building regional education hubs that respond to demand from the expatriate population and, increasingly, from international students. For example, UK TNE is supporting Cyprus' geostrategic positioning as a regional service sector hub in the Eastern Mediterranean. This is being supported by welcoming policies from local authorities and building on successful previous experiences, such as the University of Central Lancashire campus in Larnaca. Finally, a little explored aspect of transnational education is its role in helping host countries meet their human development goals. TNE is most successful where it supports local development agendas. The recent British Council report, The Shape of Global Higher Education, identified TNE as an area with untapped potential to contribute to widening equitable access to quality tertiary education. Government-funded TNE initiatives are seeing growing popularity in Southeast Asia, such as the UK-Thailand Transnational Education Development Project, jointly run by the British Council in Thailand and the Office of the Higher Education Commission. In sum, the success story of UK transnational education is one built in partnership with local governments and higher education institutions. Growth worldwide bears witness both to the continued demand by students and the high quality of the programs and models delivered by UK institutions. In the future, UK TNE provision will need to adapt to collectively meet new challenges derived from poverty, inequality, environmental degradation, and peace and justice. Relevance for students, institutions, and communities will ensure that the growth of TNE is sustained in the future.
Hi, I'm Esther Wilkinson, Head of International at JISC. Before I embark on the world of international education and technology, I'd like you to watch this short clip on Education 4.0.
I remember the teacher talked and we listened. We had to memorise quite a lot too. A lot of time was spent giving out books and collecting them up again. We were sitting in rows in desks so we could see the board better because talk and chalk was the way.
There must be an industrial revolution in education, in which educational science and the ingenuity of educational technology combine to modernise the grossly inefficient and clumsy procedures of conventional education. Sidney L. Pressay, 1924.
These young people are studying in a new way.
A computing calculator designed for use in high school classrooms has created tremendous excitement among educators.
The tool which has made this possible is the high-speed digital computer operating with electronic precision on great quantities of information.
If we think about the third industrial revolution, that was PCs and the internet, and we've just about caught up with that. The fourth industrial revolution is what becomes possible from those technologies.
Industry 4.0 is the next big shift in the way that manufacturing operates. Digital know-how is going to be hugely important, and then people will need to be flexible because the world will change.
The future workplace and future societies, we're still moulding them as we go, and technology is one of the main pillars in what is shaping what the future will look like.
The pace of change is remarkable, with the introduction of these exponential technologies creating a paradigm shift to create Education 4.0.
Lectures aren't fit for purpose anymore. Using textbooks and teaching in a Victorian sort of method with rows of students, listening to the teacher, taking notes, it's obsolete. We need to use our time in lessons to actually have those meaningful mentoring one-to-ones that can never be replaced. The technology gives us that time if we use it correctly.
Rather than being something that's scary, we can use technology to be something that's very liberating for people, so that instead of having to go through the rigmarole of institutional learning as it's been in the past, we can actually use smart robotics, smart computers to make learning more accessible to more people and to actually tailor it to individual needs.
This whole cluster of AI technologies will make learning for students more rewarding, teaching for academics more rewarding. We want it to be a win for everybody.
We've shown already in clinical studies and trials that retention is up to 70% higher in virtual reality. That has a huge impact on learning and retention of facts.
The challenge is for universities to really develop their students' digital skills so that they can actually make use of those skills in the workplace. It would be all too easy to say everyone must learn to code, but the truth is coding is just one digital skill.
Creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, these skills that can never be automated, that can never be replaced, are what we need to focus on.
Education 4.0 is a request to the education sector to rethink the educational paradigm. And it's an opportunity for us as this fourth industrial revolution kicks off to think about what modern education should look like. We now live in a hyper-connected world, and now the time, more than ever, the time is for us to say, what do we want to do with that?
Today, I want to touch on the critical need for good connectivity, the issue of licensing digital content overseas, and student experience. But I'd also really like to get you to think about the role of technology as an enabler to support international education, mobility, and transnational education. Not just now, but in the future. I hope that the short clip that we just played helps set the context of Education 4.0, transforming the future of education through advanced technology, for us then be able to extrapolate this to TNE 4.0. For those that don't know, JISC is a national research and education network. We provide ultra-fast, reliable and secure connectivity and services, ranging from mobile Wi-Fi to cybersecurity and learning analytics, running the network that connects all universities and colleges in the UK, but also elevating the digital capabilities and skills of our staff and students. We have sister organisations in most countries with similar physical networks supporting research and education across the globe. So in Australia, this is ARNet, an organisation that we work closely with. In simple terms, you plug into JISC, you're accessing the rest of the world through our network infrastructure. Our global networks were initially created to haul large swathes of data to enable global research collaboration. But as international education is growing, the use of the network is becoming more sophisticated to support education as well as research. At JISC, it is my aspiration to be able to support our members, our universities and colleges, wherever they are in the world. And a large part of this is enabling the delivery of high-quality transnational education. JISC's TNE support has mainly focused on overseas campuses and partnerships. There are many technology challenges, fundamentally around delivering good network connectivity. Without the network, you have no Wi-Fi, no EduRoam, no video conferences for tutorials and discussion groups, and no access to home-based resources. The network is fundamental and not always easy to source and provide in those parts of the world where we are delivering TNE. In an overseas campus, the home university is generally responsible for the infrastructure. They have to find and deal with overseas suppliers, possibly even outsourcing the infrastructure services. There may be language challenges, technical complexities, heightened by the lack of resource and time constraints to deliver the IT infrastructure, whether through a UK team or local IT staff. All of this increases cost and risk. In a partnership, where the partner organisation may be responsible for the infrastructure, there are similar issues. Was the IT infrastructure part of the contract negotiations at the outset? How can the partner organisation be challenged or persuaded to change non-optimal arrangements? And who pays for those changes? JISC has services to establish and manage the network for our members, for our universities, and we have a successful track record in Malaysia, India and Malta, currently extending this to parts of the Middle East. It's also critical to have an understanding of the technology limitations and regulations in local countries, what you can and cannot use. For example, being unable to use virtual private networks in Dubai, and those course materials on YouTube, Google and other media being blocked by the firewall of China. This may significantly limit the delivery of what may be a home-designed course. We have provided years of advice in a changing environment in parts of the world such as China and Dubai. JISC's role is to work with our members in partnership to support TNE. We need to enable global universities to operate across multiple sites as a single entity, treating worldwide campuses as if they were buildings on one site. With the virtual combining of branch and onshore campuses and the move to blended learning, we require excellent networking and ubiquitous connectivity. We need to provide seamless access to technology wherever our students and staff are in the world to facilitate their mobility. By doing this with our technology partners in country, we're also strengthening the local infrastructure, building network capacity by increasing their member base. This requires, in some cases, changes in policy or working with our partners to develop a longer-term strategic perspective. Quality of provision means providing a parity of experience for those students studying overseas, and this fundamentally means access to course materials and digital content. Another key area that we are working in is the issue of licensing content overseas, but also what about the students themselves? Their use and experience of digital media and the digital environment is critical. What do we know about their experiences, about their digital capabilities? Are they on a par with our home counterparts, or should we be doing more, less, or adapting for the digital skills of our TNE students? We are working on extending our digital insights and digital capabilities programs, some of which are already used by a number of Australian universities for their home students, extending this to transnational students. But I think you'll agree with me that these are the real basics for TNE support. Industry 4.0 will bring a real shift in technical capability that will change the world around us, just as previous revolutions created step changes in our ancestors' lives. Education institutions are preparing our learners for new workplaces with new jobs and employment opportunities. But what about the transformation of education institutions themselves, embracing Industry 4.0 technologies to deliver Education 4.0? Will this be the end of the lecture theatre, or even the university or college becoming unbundled learning hotels and concierges? What will a global smart campus look like? How do we develop immersive and interactive, and most importantly, responsive learning for our TNE students? How will students take control of their own learning, personalised and adaptive, underpinned by transformed teaching? How can we use technology to support micro-credentials and lifelong learning, automating the more routine aspects of teaching and administration? How can students have a digital identity, not just associated with the campus, that they can carry globally throughout all stages of the learning life cycle, through to employment, and integrated with the major providers such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft and Netflix? We have a responsibility for the health and well-being of our students and staff. How can analytics and data be used to make interventions for TNE students in the same way as we're starting to do for their home counterparts? What will future models of TNE look like? And how will such boundaries blur with international education? What will the impacts of climate change be on education? Are we taking for granted the ability to regularly fly across the globe to deliver courses? And how will we meet the needs of those in the most remote environments, or the most inaccessible, or reaching the most vulnerable? I urge you to take back to your institutions a conversation on the implications of Industry and Education 4.0, and how this can be extrapolated for the next generation of international education and TNE, underpinned and enabled through technology. In our rapidly changing fourth industrial revolution, how are we going to make that huge step change to deliver education of the future, and how fast can we move towards this? But in this, you must first ask yourselves, have you really embraced the enabling technologies that already exist?